these tutorials, or this first one, is about what I said at the end of the last one. So we animated our character. I said, could you challenge yourself and see whether you can make him crouch, see whether you could make him die, perhaps when your health score gets to 0, and see if you can make him jump. That's a more difficult one. But if you wanted to challenge yourself, you could. But now I'm going to take you through it, and I'm going to take you through it and introduce you a new concept in programming called functions. If you want to know even more about functions, I'll put a link below to a video I created for beginner programmers about functions and procedures in C#. It's in this playlist about C#, beginner coding tutorials in C#. It's number 5. But the best way to learn it really is in our Unity environment, because that's what you've got used to. So there is a link below for this video for this tutorial. And the first thing we're going to do is how can we make it crouch, and an introduction to functions. So we want to create a crouch function in our code. Now, let's open this up. I've already done this a little bit earlier. So I'm going to take this out. And I did the jump as well. I'll paste those down there and we'll come back to it. So what we want to do is we want to create a function that we're going to call from our update function. You see how it's getting a bit long and messy here? You know, we've got all this stuff about getting the movement on the X and the Z and then adding the vector to the transform and then detecting the speed. But, well, you know, really get confusing as programs get more complex. We need to break them up into functions. Functions are useful. Update is a function. Start is a function. Functions start and end with brackets in C#, and functions must be contained within a class, so that between the start and the end bracket in C#. They don't just go wherever you want. So how to write a function? Well, we first need to write whether or not it's going to return anything. And for now, our function's on. We're just going to write void. We're then going to write the name of the function. So it's going to be called crouch. And then we're going to write some brackets. Brackets will hold parameters, something we'll introduce into the next video. But all this function is going to do something very simple at first. It's going to print. So if I run my code now, let's call this crouch 2, because I've got another function down here called crouch. That's the other thing. Functions must have unique names. You cannot call them crouch and crouch, but else the computer will not know which one is which. They're like variable names. You must have unique variable names. To use this function, I need to call it from somewhere. Well, I'm going to call it from my move update function. And every frame, I'm going to check whether or not eventually the player has pressed like the up or the crouch key, which I assume might be C. And so I'm going to call crouch 2 like that. You can call your one crouch. It's just that I've got this other function called crouch because I practiced this out a bit earlier. So if I run this now, you will see in the console window it printing crouch here, because I told my code to call crouch 2. So the code will jump from line 27 to line 43, and it will read all the code in here up to the end of this function, which is on line 46, and it will print crouch, which is what it's doing in the console. So that's great, but we want our function to actually do something, don't we? Like, we want to make him crouch. So in the same way we used the animator before to set the Boolean for shooting, we're going to do the same thing but for crouch. So I'm going to get rid of that print statement. We don't need it. We're going to detect if the C key is pressed, because you could make it whatever you want. You could make it the shift key. Just go and look up Unity key codes, Unity key codes, and look at the big long list of things that they've got in their documentation about which keys you need to detect. So here we go. So, you know, if you wanted the shift key, look for shift. I'm not sure where it is, but we just want this C key. Make it simple. So if input dot get key down dot and then we're going to have which key code dot c, right? If that's pressed, we're going to use the animator and we're going to call the function set bool. You see, you've already used function, you didn't even realize it before, but the animator, the input library has a function. It get key down here. We're passing in values into it. So, and it's doing something with that. There's a whole implementation behind detecting whether a key is pressed that is hidden from you, written inside of this function that you can call at any point. And we're creating our own one now called crouch2. I'm just going to call it crouch actually and delete that one I wrote down there. Just so that you can also have the same name and you're not copying the wrong thing. So animate set bool. What are we going to set? Well, we need to set, let's go to the animator and find the name of the thing that we want to set to true, which is crouch B. So I'm guessing it's going to be that. That's what a simple Cintiq Studio is just set up in its animation tree to trigger a crouch. So cool. Let's just run that, see how it looks. You'll see when you press the C key, your character will crouch, but they won't be able to get back up. So maybe you know how to fix that, or I'm about to show you, and give it a go. There we go, crouching, but not getting up. So how are we going to fix that? Well, we need an else if, we need to do the same thing we did with the mouse key. We need to set input dot get key up key code dot c, and then we're going to take the animator and we're going to set the bool of this. I'm going to copy this actually, we're going to have to rewrite it, and we're going to set that to false, so it's going to reverse the animation. So I'm going to save that now. I'm going to put the animator side by side so you can see how the animation tree works. So over here like this. The layer that we're probably looking at is movement, possibly, or jumping, maybe not jumping, crouch. Yeah, the crouch layer, that makes sense. So you can see there's several different states you can get to. This is a state diagram. This in computer science, these are very important, and it's being used here to animate the state. So we're going from not crouched to crouch down, crouch idle, crouch up. And then from crouch up or crouch idle, you could also go to a death animation. Because of course you need to be able to reach a death from any state, unfortunately. So let's run this and watch how the animation tree changes. We could also watch how the parameters change. So I press C and I let go. I press C, I hold it down, it's stuck in crouch idle. I let go, it goes to crouch up and then not crouch. And if we looked at the parameters and I press C, the crouch B parameter gets ticked and then it gets unticked. And we're doing that in our code. We're doing that in this script here. So you've learned a couple of things today. How to create a function. A function is a way of keeping your code neat, so that you don't have a big long list of commands and you're not quite sure what's going on. You can debug it easily. A function contains a series of commands and it's specific to the name of the function. So you've got to make sure you name your function the thing that it's meant to do. And then you've also learned how to call the function. So you call it from a place where the computer is calling it from the update function here, because it's calling it once per frame. And it calls it from here, it jumps to here, it checks to see if any of the keys are being pressed. If it is, you crouch. If you don't, you stop crouching if you let go of the key. And then here we're then updating the animator's crouch B function to set bool. So that's how you make it crouch. So if you watch in the next video, I'm going to show you how to make your character jump.